tools. This places them beyond the reach of many developing countries. And even where the needed expertise is available, we have often seen that the required analysis conducted on an ad hoc and project-by-project basis, which is an expensive and time-consuming way of reinventing the wheel. However, we can take a different approach by seeing climate projections as a perfect example of a regional public good. When such knowledge products are properly developed, they can find a wide range of applications. And once the modeling has been done, each new application does not incur new costs. Downscaled climate change projections, regional weather forecasting, early warning systems for disasters, these examples can all be provided at low additional costs as regional public goods if we are willing to coordinate our efforts rather than acting alone. With our partners, ADB will play an important role in facilitating the creation of such regional public goods that support effective adaptation to climate change. These can be combined with vulnerability assessments to help improve decision-making at the local level. We have seen how crucial it is to urgently fill knowledge gaps. It is critical that such information is packaged in a user-friendly format, I would like to say, and is made available to all users from government to community level, and in a language that can be understood. To be effective, such an approach will require enhanced capacities. This brings us to my second pillar for successful adaptation: capacity development. Capacity development for adaptation is a cross-cutting area of support. It is central to effective implementation of adaptation measures and to appropriate policy development. Both of these require high-level cross-sectoral coordination with adequate levels of ownership by all involved departments and line agencies. Better integration of disaster risk reduction and adaptation programs will be another area of focus. It is also increasingly essential to develop capacity for mainstreaming adaptation into development planning. Another priority is to develop and apply country-specific and locally appropriate methods and tools. Tools are needed for assessing vulnerabilities as well as the costs and benefits of adaptation options. Such analysis will also help to improve the economic rationale of decision-making under conditions of climate uncertainty. ADB will continue to play a key role in developing and supporting the introduction of such tools into country and sector strategies, as well as project planning, design and implementation. In this area, there is a need to work closely with the private sector to ensure that climate risks are appropriately reflected in investment decision-making. To more broadly engage the private sector, policymakers need to establish a policy environment that enables its participation in adaptation activities. In particular, they should ensure that private and public investors apply climate risk standards, that planning and design codes are developed and up to date, and that material selection, construction methods, supervision and operation and maintenance are all up to standards. A really challenging set of issues. New and innovative financing and risk-sharing approaches and associated institutional arrangements are also needed to promote the integration of adaptation and disaster risk reduction, including through insurance and other disaster risk finance instruments. Adaptation can only partly be addressed through action at national and sector level. A complementary challenge and long-term goal is to empower local communities and build their capacities to assess their own climate vulnerabilities and strengthen adaptation strategies. Communities will need access to climate information, and those at higher levels should ensure that adaptation responses address local stakeholders' concerns. Adaptation strategies should therefore build upon existing livelihoods and take into account the existing knowledge and coping strategies of the poor. Formalization of participatory approaches for adaptation will be an important part of this effort. Adapting to inevitable climate change impacts will cost developing countries a lot of money. They will need to dedicate resources to building climate resilience in vulnerable sectors and critical infrastructure. The most recent estimates suggest that adaptation costs in our region could be in the order of $40 billion annually. Clearly, substantial additional financing will be needed, so I raise finance as the third pillar. In Copenhagen, the developed countries made a collective commitment to provide $30 billion from 2010 to 2012 and set a goal of mobilizing up to $100 billion per year by the year 2020, balancing the allocation between adaptation and mitigation. Such financing provisions will be important elements of the post-2012 climate regime. The multilateral development banks are expected to play a key role in challenging these funds to developing countries. ADB will be prepared and positioned to support this process and has been working to build understanding about climate change response options in the region for nearly 2 decades now. Unfortunately, there is little expectation that a post-2012 global climate agreement can be concluded before 2012 in Johannesburg and probably later. The climate talks recently concluded in Tianjin, and we have heard about this morning already, to prepare for COP16 in Cancun, Mexico, were therefore mostly about identifying interim steps to form the foundation for a comprehensive and legally binding agreement. One option for progress on adaptation would be to make the Copenhagen Accords financing pledge more specific. Financing for climate change adaptation needs to be adequate, predictable, and sustainable. And it needs to be provided in a measurable, reportable, and verifiable manner. While these are principles that I suppose we all agree with, translating them into efficient, effective, and accountable financial mechanisms is both a challenge and an opportunity. Existing financial mechanisms have given us important lessons. Countries face a bewildering set of financing modalities and have to contend with high transaction costs and lack of predictability in assessing incremental finance. In addition, new and innovative financing and risk-sharing approaches are needed along with associated institutional arrangements. Insurance and other disaster risk finance instruments are among the options that should be considered. Financing channels must continue to evolve to reduce transaction costs while focusing on responsiveness, results, and accountability. As an implementing agency of the Global Environment Facility, the World Bank administered climate investment funds and the UNFCCC Adaptation Fund, ADB is already helping developing member countries to access global resources to achieve environmentally sustainable growth. In close coordination with other partners, ADB can help its developing member countries to navigate the range of opportunities. We can act as a one-stop shop for financing and identifying appropriate financing strategies while building the capacities of our developing member countries to directly access climate financing over time. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I've pointed out that climate change adaptation requires three important pillars: knowledge, capacity development, and finance. We have observed sizable gaps for all three key components in both the developing countries and our development partners in the